Google. But here, let's move on to this story. This is another example of the ultimate gaslighting. People are not allowed to ask legitimate questions because of concerns. But we're going to cover two stories, two articles. One is from, obviously, an advocacy group. This is a freedom advocacy group. And the other one is from a mainstream media article. So, yeah. So the first one's from BC Rise. Edmonton wants to make a 15-minute city, discourages individual vehicles. Let's go into what they basically bring up.
So the city of Edmonton announced its interest in building what is being pitched as a 15-minute city for residents, which appears to have, for your convenience, talking point to sell the idea. The city is looking to centralize the population into concentrated, dense living boundaries known as districts. Neighborhoods will be merged together, forming districts. District planning is a multi-year project to build communities, a community of communities, small towns in our big city where people can meet many of their daily needs within 15 minutes from where they live. The city plan appears to be dominated with a radical focus on climate change by setting collective city carbon emission targets and individual carbon emission targets, including the idea of centralizing society. So, greener as we grow targets. Achieve total community-wide carbon budget of 135 megatons, 2 million new urban trees planted, and of course, net per person greenhouse gases are 0.
Okay.
So let's focus on that.
Go to the part that says communities targets page 12. These are the goals that they have. So maybe you can cover those really quick.
Yeah. City plan talks about the community of communities where its goal by 2030 is to have 50% of trips by individuals done on public transit and active transportation, which is described as using walking, rolling, or biking. Community of communities.
Discouraging
individual vehicles. Community of communities aims to break down individual personal privacy to make life feel less anonymous in a big city. The government plans to create policy to constrain living and activity within the 15-minute city for people to live more locally. The city's goal is to stop people from living in the suburbs and rural areas and ban all future rural residential development. Prevent all further subdivision of rural residential or agricultural land that creates additional rural residential parcels and would otherwise facilitate further country residential development. It says in the city plan.
Yes. Now, by the way, that video, you don't have to play it, Stephen, but that video there, it obviously it was linked on purpose because that video is about a pilot project in a place in Oxford, a place called Oxfordshire, where they're already basically putting in features that are enforcing, or they're basically slow rolling this little by little. They want to just start introducing people slowly to the idea, and then gradually they're going to start adding more and more and more. Eventually, in this little town in England, or in the UK, which is basically the first place to do this, they basically want to use all sorts of camera, like license plate scanning technology. They're going to use facial recognition, all this other stuff. And one of the things that is the most draconian and dystopian of all is that they're basically going to say that in order to leave your district, you have to ask permission from the government. Now, of course, at the beginning, it's going to be very generous and anyone, just ask permission, you're good. But once you've established a system like that, that's when they can start gripping harder and making it so that you are basically in your little prison system. Why is this this is insanity? And of course, you have to remember the people that want to make this happen are part of a bigger agenda. Why do they keep referring to 2030? Because this all comes from the WEF's nightmarish view that they have to create the Great Reset by 2030. All of them want to do this. This is part of a bigger plan. Now, what is the number one thing they're going to do one of the things that they have to do to successfully be able to implement this is they have to completely and totally shut down any people that might
raise flags about this.
Yeah, because they need the people to be completely ignorant of their plans in order to keep doing that. The biggest enemy to their plans is sunlight. Yep. They can't have anyone exposing this.
So from City News, online conspiracy theories about Edmonton's 15-minute city plan. Absolute nonsense.
Of course.
Edmonton's district plan about how the city is preparing for population growth, but what exactly does it mean to be a 15-minute city? The urban plan aims to give residents access to most of what they need within 15 minutes of their home. All of these things within 15 minutes of your front door, said Councillor Tim Cartmel. He says some Edmontonians like himself already live in districts that have most of what you need within a 15-minute walk or bike ride, but he points to neighborhoods like Windermere in his ward as still lacking some key amenities. You can send your kid on a bike down to the splash park or the skateboard park, which you cannot do in Windermere right now because they don't exist. The plan has been in the works since 2020 as part of the city plan and is anticipated to be back before council this summer. Online conspiracy theories. But the Urban Planning Initiative has recently been getting negative attention with the basis claim this is an attempt to lock people in their neighborhoods. Whoever is suggesting that we must really be entertaining themselves with how many people they've gotten to bite because it's absolute nonsense. Amarjeet Soul expects the majority of Edmontonians are very smart and sophisticated people who will not believe this conspiracy theory being promoted online.
Yeah, this is what they do. This is the fact-checking regime, and they always come out immediately that they call. Basically, what they do is they call people crazy. Anybody who raises concerns about like this pattern, because remember, they're in lockstep all over the world. All people all over the world, governments all over the world are doing the same things. So people have a right to actually question these things, and they have to provide people with like proper assurances. Instead, they just call you crazy. If you have any concerns on this, and they use completely and totally fraudulent and completely dishonest methods to try to fact check these things. This is what they do. The fact checkers come out, and the fact checkers are always looking for totally BS like ways of supposedly debunking these ideas. What they say, people say, for example, someone might say, you know what? I heard that they're doing this in other places, and the goal is to eventually make it so that people can leave their neighborhoods. And the fact checkers will come out and say, no one's being locked in their neighborhood, so this is a completely and totally false claim. It's like, of course it is. Nobody said that people are actually being locked in their neighborhoods. They're saying that the goal or that the potential ramifications of the system may be that this may be a goal or an outcome in the future. This is the fraudulent and dishonest way that they do this. So the reason why this is important to bring up. Now, I haven't researched this ad nauseum. I don't know. I haven't read the plan of the Edmonton City Council, all that kind of stuff. But I do know that the Edmonton City Council, as well as Calgary City Council, have been taken over by climate change ideologues. And the Calgary mayor, basically, on I think like in the first couple of days of her tenure, declared a climate emergency, a permanent climate emergency here in Calgary. Why would you do something like that insane? Because they basically have a plan, and they have to install it in phases. The problem is that when you start to see these things that are already happening elsewhere in the world start to creep in places here, that's when you should start being worried, because it looks like they're trying to slow roll it. And of course, they'll never put it in all at once. They'll never do that. If they plan to make these 15-minute prisons, they're not going to do it on day one. They're going to start by making sure people are aware, oh, I'm in District 5, I'm in District 6, I'm in District 12, I'm Katniss Everdeen, and then get them used to this idea. And they start to create these limits on leaving your district, obviously for your own good, because and they're going to use all sorts of justifications like, oh, we're trying to save the environment by reducing carbon. Oh, we're trying to limit the impact on roads and all that kind of stuff. And then after they get people used to that, then they'll start introducing penalties for leaving your district. And then they'll start and of course they've already started introducing in the federal government and other places plans to completely and totally cancel all gas-powered vehicle sales by 2035. They've already said that. So if they're planning to completely phase out cars, then what are people left with? People are left with buses, and people are left with just basically moving on bikes, which means that people's ability to move and to leave are incredibly targeted, and you basically are now completely dependent on the government to be able to travel anywhere. And by the way, all of this is not far-fetched. This isn't like some dystopian thing. They're already doing this in China. And they're trying to bring China and the Chinese system of social credit system here. So just be ready. This is what they're doing. Right, Steve?
Yep.
Move on.